Welcome to this episode of Bright Ideas. I am Jessica Dumig, and today I am interviewing and talking with Nick Carparelli. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, it
Uh,
sounds so formal. I've called you Jess for all the years and years I know you. But I'll call you Jessica if you want.
no, you can call me Jess. It's totally fine. I always introduce myself that way, going through a rebrand, but people who know me call me Jess whether I want them to or not. But I'm cool with it. For a while, I would not even answer to Jess. And
All right.
then now that's pretty much exclusively what I go by in person to person. So you call me Jess. That's really funny. When you called me Jessica, I was like, oh, that's weird. So Nick, tell me, so Nick, you're the executive director of bowl season. What is bowl season?
Good question. I get asked that a lot. As the executive director of bowl season, I really kind of have to give two answers to that question. It is, in terms of my job, bowl season is an association of the 45 bowl games. They're all dues paying members. I work for them. We have an annual meeting and trade show. We just had it in April. You were there, Jess. 450 people. Everybody who works for a bowl game does business with bowl games. Conference office representatives, ESPN, the CW network was there. It's a great collection of people that come together to celebrate bowl season and to get a lot of work done. I'm an advocate for that group. I work with the commissioners on a regular basis, make sure that bowl season still stays relevant in this new era of the expanded college football playoff. But then the other side of bowl season is really the more public side, right? It's a time of year on the American sports calendar that people look forward to. You have the NFL playoffs, you have March Madness, the NBA playoffs, you have the Major League Baseball playoffs in October, and bowl season really owns December and early January. I mean, it's one of ESPN's most profitable times of year. The average non-CFP bowl game had 2.7 million viewers last year, which was
Wow.
an increase of 14% over last year. And in a year that everybody thought bowl games were going to take a hit with the new
Yeah.
12-team playoff, who's going to care about bowl games? Well, more people watch those bowl games than they have in over 5 years. So it's an exciting time of year. It's an exciting job, and I'm fortunate to have it.
Yeah, and I think bowl season and all these bowl games that you're talking about are fortunate to have you because your background is basically if you're an East Coaster, this is the what's what of background. So take us through it. I mean, you graduated Syracuse. Take us from there.
Yeah, good question. And I've answered this question in a lot in front of sports management classes. I get asked to speak to a lot of sports management classes. I really enjoy doing that. I'm a member of the board of advisors of the Syracuse, the Falk School of Sports Management at Syracuse. David Falk, Michael Jordan's legendary agent, put his name on the school. Very proud of that program, and I speak to their classes a lot. I go up to campus for meetings, and which is ironic because that's where I got my start. So my career, I was fortunate to be hired by Paul Pasqualoni, who was the head football coach at Syracuse back in the early 90s through the early 2000s. He was there for 14 years, probably should be a Hall of Famer. He um, he and my dad used to teach elementary phys ed. So after graduating with a mechanical engineering degree as my undergrad degree, he hired me he called me in January, said, I got this position for you. It's going to pay for your MBA, work for me, run recruiting, a lot of it about my administrative help, but you got to be up here tomorrow. So I packed up my little Honda Prelude in Cheshire, Connecticut, and drove through the snow to Syracuse, New York on January 15th, 1992. And so that was my start. And then from there, it was just a sequence. I went from there to being a recruiting coordinator for Bob Davie at Notre Dame. I was then hired by Bill Belichick in New England right after his first year when he was 5-11. It was not a no-brainer to leave Notre Dame to go to the Patriots.
No.
Then we won this Super Bowl trophy behind me in that year, and then Mike Tranghese hired me at the Big East. That's back before the CFP days. It was the BCS, and
Yeah.
before the BCS even had one employee, it was managed from a public facing standpoint and an organizational standpoint by a commissioner and his staff on a 2-year rotation. So go back to the start of the BCS in 1998. I think it was Roy Kramer at the SEC had the first 2 years. It was John Swafford at the ACC at the next 2 years. And then starting in 2002, when Mike hired me, it was Mike Tranghese in the Big East for 2 years. So I was hired to be the associate commissioner for football of the Big East, but also to help him in that 2 year period, which was just a
Gotcha.
tremendous experience. I was in meetings with him and all the other 10 commissioners, Jim Delaney, Mike Slive, Kevin Weiberg, all those legendary commissioners at that time. Was there for 12 years, loved that job. I grew up a Big East fan, oversaw
Yeah.
the corporate partnership program around the Big East basketball tournament at the Garden. This coming year will be the 25th straight Big East tournament I've attended, including the COVID years. I defy anyone literally to match that. So there'll be a big 25th anniversary celebration. Follow me on social media for that. Probably come up with a special logo.
Cool.
I'm kidding, Jess. Um, and then left conference realignment hit. The Big East changed, became the American Athletic Conference. Big East basketball schools left, and that was perfect timing when a search firm reached out to me and I took a job with Under Armour running college sports marketing. Really forced me to kind of transition to really an external, brand building type of role. I was in that job for 5 years. I was tasked with growing our college business. We went from outfitting 25 Division I college programs, everybody from Notre Dame down to Siena, you know, uh, big time programs down to mid majors. And we grew that from 25 to 75. But I was
Yeah.
responsible for signing Seton Hall, Cincinnati, Wisconsin, Cal Berkeley, UCLA, which at the time was the biggest deal in the history of collegiate outfitting, which
Oh,
was
wow.
pretty cool. And then I was there for 5 years. They kind of like those kind of brands do. They shifted strategy to where they want to invest their dollars. So it was time for me to move on. And I was hired to be the executive director of bowl season, which 5 years ago didn't exist. It was the Football Bowl Association. All it was that trade show and annual meeting we talked about.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to paint a vision for how do we make this a more public, fan-facing brand so that we can promote the bowl system collectively in a bigger and better way than we ever had before. Because for 100 years it was every bowl game promoting themselves.
Right.
Still do that, and that's a great thing. But now we're promoting the system collectively as this time of year on the American sports calendar. So it's been a fun project, Jess. I say this all the time. This will be my conclusion to this answer. It's not too often you get an opportunity to launch a new sports brand that's 100 years old. So you
Cool.
think of the opportunities, the challenges, but the advantages you have to do that under that framework. So I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, and that rebrand was very successful. Super cool. Obviously, you're wearing the branding there, the red and the gold. But the confetti, I think, was one of the coolest pieces of that. And just really came out with a bang. I mean, I've been associated with bowls for the past 16 years, and it was really refreshing to see that come out. I think it was a super successful launch. I think people who are not in the bowl world probably didn't necessarily understand it as much as the people who did. And then it took off like wildfire once it was like, okay, we get it. Like year one, it was like, I don't get it. And then people were like, oh, I get it now. It was really cool how it came together.
Yeah, and every year that goes by, it becomes more natural to people. It's been 5 years now, and our logo's on the field of all the non-CFP bowl games. ESPN recognizes it on the crawl. During December. When they're showing NBA
Yeah.
scores, it says NBA, and the scores go across. When it's bowl scores, it says bowl season, which is
Yeah.
pretty. Small things get me excited sometimes, and that was an aha moment. Like, okay, we're onto something here. When they did that without us even asking. So yeah, it feels more natural now. Every year that goes by, we become, I think, more integrated in the everyday thought process of sports fans.
Yeah, and what's really cool to me is the connections that you guys make, the power of having all 45 of those games in that room. This year, the conference was in Las Vegas. I mean, we're talking about custom, like week-long logos on the sides of buildings, on the sphere, well, the sphere at the Resorts World. That was very cool. I mean, if you were, we sometimes take for granted being part of such big things, right? And when I saw this on the side of the building, I was like, okay. I mean, only in Vegas, but also holy shit in Vegas. Like that was pretty
It
cool.
was cool for us, yeah, and we got a lot of positive feedback on this annual meeting. We've tried to upgrade it every year, and as you can imagine, the old format, and this isn't a knock on them, it was a different organization then. I mean, it was a cardboard logo of Football Bowl Association over the door into the ballroom. That was kind of
Right.
branding. So,
Hmm.
we're trying to, we have a small staff. We don't have a big budget. But if you add up the economic impact and the amount of money spent on events locally and $100 million distributed to the team across the 43 games, it's a big money enterprise. So,
Yeah.
we're charged with representing that collective group of bulls. So we have to, as part of this challenge is we have to give this appearance that we are as big time and as important on that American sports calendar as we are, even though our little organization is not financed to that level.
Yeah, but you guys have heavy hitters on that small organization. I mean, you guys do a ton with, like you said, a small staff. Talk about building that staff because you have John Egan, who's been selling forever. You've Thomas Caracciolo, who has been with you. I met him the first year of the now Gasparilla Bowl, but it was the St. Petersburg Bowl. I met him then with you. I met you before that, but he's been with you for most of his career, I think. And then now you've added Samantha, and you have interns every year. I mean, talk about how did you build that team? Where did you find these people? How did you decide on the people that you ultimately put in those roles?
Yeah, thanks. I'm very proud of the team we've built. When they hired me, I was a team of one, and we
Yeah.
had no budget. I mentioned the Bulls paid dues, but that basically, paid my salary, paid for the annual meeting, and that was it. So we had to generate revenue to do the things that we did. As great as you and I think most people recognize, what we're doing. When it's just a vision, you're not going to get the 40 plus Bulls to say, oh yeah, we'll finance that, or we'll give
Right.
up our own revenue that we need to run a successful game in our community to float the entire boat. There just people aren't wired that way. So we had to kind of earn everything. So, we hired John Egan, who was a senior VP at Learfield. He's been a friend forever, very talented corporate partnership sales professional. It was good fortune. He was kind of going out on his own and being an independent contractor and trying to start his own business. So, I think we were his first client, it's commission only deal. Like I wouldn't have gotten our membership to approve another salary.
Right.
And he's been killing it. So he and I together, then with the rest of the team as it evolved have, have funded all these initiatives we do, and which we can get into if you'd like. And then once we started generating revenue and, you know, it takes work to fulfill these partnerships. We need a director of operations, and you mentioned Thomas Caracciolo. Thomas was an intern for me at the Big East back in 2006.
Yeah.
He was the director of operations for the Kansas City Chiefs for a little while, and he was kind of, he's been around, but then he was kind of out of sports and wanted to get back in. So why don't you help me with this, and we'll just see where it goes. I'm surprised he's stuck around with me for 4 or 5 years. He does his value far exceeds what we pay him, but he enjoys the job and he makes all the operations work. And then, Samantha came along 2 years ago. We were hiring Tony Fay PR on a monthly retainer to help us with PR here and there. And I said, you know what, we don't even need to spend more money. We could repurpose that money and hire a full-time 24/7 PR person. And Samantha's young. She's in her early 20s. Went to LSU, does a great job, very creative, a lot of energy. So that's our four-person team, and then we have two interns at all times. No surprise, they come from the Fox School of Sports Management at Syracuse, and um, they have a great experience because I take pride in giving them a full-time role. Like they might be corporate
Yeah.
interns, they might not make a lot of money, but we're like once we get them going and we mentor them, we tutor them the first month or so, we turn them loose. Our social media intern, she interacts with fan comments, gets involved in banter. We let her create posts and we review them, and she owns that. He or she owns that. It's been a female the last couple of years, including this coming year, and really great experience for them. So that's our team. It's four full-time, two interns, still lean and mean, but enough to get the job done.
Yeah, and you really push those interns at the end of their year. Are they seniors when they come in, or do they have to be seniors, or are they grad students?
They're seniors at Syracuse. It's a capstone program. They have to have an internship like that. The fall is when I have those two interns and when I really, need them. and they have a great experience. So that's technically their capstone. So a couple of years ago, we said we would take two new interns in the spring. Wasn't in some ways it wasn't as good of an experience, but to be able to come to the annual meeting and see that come to life, which is so much work for us throughout the year to get that together, was very valuable too. But we were getting new interns up to speed in January,
Right.
and it was hard. So we've interviewed the last few years, we've interviewed intern candidates, and we said, look, we know your capstone's going to be in the fall, technically ends, January 1st. But if you take this job, we want you to stay 4 more months through the end of April. And here's why. Great experience for you. Follow, see everything you've been working on following through. And they've all been excited to do that. Typically, it's their last semester, senior year. They only have a few classes. So that's worked out really, really well. And yeah, as you said, my opening remarks, I usually call the two interns on stage and have them be front and center, brag on them a little bit, and encourage the hundreds of potential employers sitting in the audience to engage with them at some point during the meeting.
Yeah, I think that that's such a whether they get a job from that in the bowls or not, it's such a learning experience. It's such exposure. Name recognition is so important, even on social media with not the Facebooks and the Instagrams, but on LinkedIn, right? Like people recognize their names. They see it a lot. They hear it a lot. They've now met them. If nothing else, they say, okay, well, they did a fantastic job at this massive event that bowl season threw, and I got to talk to them candidly. It's powerful one way or another. And I think that's really special.
It is for sure, because look, I'm getting older now. I've had a lot of experiences, but it gives you perspective, right? When I was younger, my pitch was, "Hey, I'm young, I'm new, I'm fresh, I have energy. That's what I could bring to the table that somebody older can't." I like to think that I still exude a youthful exuberance, even though I'm older. But now I realize the value of experiences and perspective and every little opportunity, and you realize it's not just about your experiences. It's about you and your personality. And sometimes personalities fit a job and sometimes they don't, right? Are you
Right.
more of an introverted, deep thinker? Like Thomas is not going to get in front of an audience and wow a crowd, but he could proofread hundreds of pages of spreadsheets and find the one period that's out of place. And that's really valuable when you're putting stuff out, right? And
Right.
um, John Egan might not be able to create a spreadsheet, but he could sell you anything, right? And he could diffuse
Yeah.
tense situations and he could bring people together and make them feel good. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes in sales, there's a lot of places people can involve money, but if there's something that makes some business sense, but they feel good doing it, they like fulfilling their investment, they like being around the people, they're going to do that, and John has a knack for doing that. So, everything, every personality fits a job, every skill set, fits a different role, and when you're hiring people, it's important to make that match. So, to your point about um, interns who are about to embark on their career being able to be face to face with people and interact and what's their personality like? Do I enjoy being around them? That's important, and you
Yeah.
can't get that in a Zoom world. Um,
True.
that's why I'm the whole pushback. People don't want to go back to work in person, and do they work remotely? That's kind of a silly argument. If somebody says to me, "Nah, I just want to work remotely. I don't want to come," well, that's a little bit of a sign of laziness to me. I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back to an office. I've been consulting now out of my house for, two full years, but then prior to that I was 5 years remote. And I'm just like, I want to be around people again. Like, especially being in the sports world, and me as a producer, I go with the energy of the crowd, whether I want to or not. And I like to think like we orchestrate that energy. So
Yeah,
for me, sitting alone in my house, if I get excited, I'm like, woo,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. There's no, there's
no
no,
one saw it.
Yeah, there's no peanut gallery here to help me celebrate. Yeah. Well, I've
Exactly.
seen you, in settings like this. We've been on many Zooms, and then at our annual meeting, you do a great job hosting, some interviews, so we can put out some content in our Go Bowling studio that we set up, which has been a hit. And I've
Yeah.
also seen you on game day at bowl games, running around with the headset on, and pulling me and Scott Glazer onto the field to hand a plaque to Mr. Godsey there on the in
Yeah,
Tampa, which was cool. And then you're on to the next thing. I'm going up to have a beer, and who's next on the field. That's your element. That's the
I love it.
Jessica I know.
Yeah. You don't know it, Jessica.
Back to
We've
the
been
first
over
St.
this.
Petersburg Bowl, right? The Gasparilla
Yeah.
Bowl used to be the St. Petersburg Bowl, and I was a part of. Talk about how do you get these jobs? For my current job, I was probably just one of a very small handful of people that was even qualified for it, right?
Right.
I went to bowl games when I was at Syracuse and Notre Dame as part of a team. I negotiated bowl deals for our teams when I was at the Big East. I uh, invested in some partnerships when I was at Under Armour with bowl games with our friend Carlos and the old Miami Beach
Oh
Bowl.
yeah.
We were in the end zone, which was a new concept back then, and so the crew just knew me. So yeah, I lost my train of thought there, but you just it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Oh, I was gonna say I was a part of part of starting a bunch of bowl games. So if people
Right.
ask me like, "What's your favorite bowl game?" That's a loaded question. It's like, "Who's your favorite child?" Right? I have two sons.
Right.
But an easy answer is the Pinstripe Bowl because I started that bowl.
Oh
I was a
yeah.
lifelong friend of a lifelong fan of the Yankees, working for the Big East. We needed another bowl opportunity. In 2009, the Yankees just built their new stadium. So I went to them. I said, "How about we have a bowl game here?" And they're like, "You're
Yeah.
crazy." And it's been 15 years now. They make a lot of money on one day in December when they would otherwise be closed. So they treat me really well as a result. And but then there was other bowls, St. Petersburg Bowl, working with ESPN events and Pete Durzis on that. I helped start that game, so that's always been close to me as well. That's where
I'll
we
tell you,
met, 2006 maybe.
we actually met before that. We met when I was an intern at USF.
Okay.
You came down for a golf tournament, and I think it was when USF was in the Big East. You were
When you first
commissioner.
joined, that was probably 2006, to around there,
Yeah.
2007, 2000.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, because then St. Pete Bowl was 2008. I was
Yeah.
coming home from grad school. I called Brett Delaney, was like, "Hey, you guys need any help with your games?" Like, Jess, I need you to run it. And I was like, "Done. Okay."
Yeah.
Take the opportunities as they come to you. And here we are 16 years later, a new stadium, everything. But you're the one responsible for football in a baseball stadium. I love it. It's the coolest thing, but people think you're crazy when you're telling them directions.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
when we first launched what's now Gasparilla, it was the first baseline was the sideline, and
Yep.
then left field was empty. But the end zones only had 3 feet of clearance till the dugouts.
Yes.
And so it was always interesting saying, okay, guys, you're going to come out of the first base dugout and you're going to go right there on the sideline. And people are like, this girl's an idiot. And then they get in there like, oh, I get it. You're going
Yeah.
to come
Yeah.
out of the third base. You're going to go to left field. That's the visitor sideline. And they're like, what?
And then
And
and
then they
then
get there.
and then the broadcaster booth was in left field, far
Yep.
from the field. Because I remember that because my good friend Sean McDonough called that game. It was the Magic Jack St. Petersburg
It
Bowl.
was.
And yeah, it was kind of odd. And I think it was the opposite side of the camera angle. So usually the announcers
Yeah.
are viewing it the same side that that the TV audience sees it, but they were viewing it from the other side. So they had to be careful saying right to left. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but that was fun. Interesting about, story about games in baseball stadiums. The so that game fit. I don't think I was involved in fitting the field in there because ESPN Events was involved, and you guys figured that out.
Right.
But when the first Pinstripe Bowl was 2010, during that regular season, Northwestern was playing a game at Wrigley Field,
Oh, yeah.
and the week leading up, the team goes through a walkthrough, and in the one end zone, the back end line of the end zone was literally the ivy, it was literally the wall, and the goalpost was attached to the wall.
Yeah.
And the teams were like, we can't do that. So during that game, whenever a team crossed midfield going in that direction, they turned around.
That was insane. It
Yeah.
was
So
cool though. It's like one of those things. It's like so niche.
it was cool, but
Yeah.
still something, so I love my friends at the Yankees, but they were new to all this. I was coaching them on how to run a bowl game. And they'd never played a football game in Yankee Stadium. So are we sure the field will fit? I said, why don't we come down, have your grounds crew mark it off? So I literally came down with my intern, Mike Costa at the time, came right
Oh
after Taj,
yeah.
and I brought my golf laser finder, and they coned it off. And I said, Mike, stand it right on that cone. And I was lasering it to make sure they measured it right even. And out of that meeting, we came up. the I think it was 3 feet, might have been 2 feet from the dugout. So what they did is like and what I mean for the dugout is where it would drop off into the dugout, which was
Right.
worse than a wall,
Yeah.
right? Um, so what they did is they built a platform in the dugout and they put sod over the platform. So it's out of
Oh,
bounds, but it gave them like an extra 5, 6 feet. They took the roof off the dugout. So now
wow.
instead of 2 feet, it was 8 feet, and it was great. So they've been doing that ever since. Wouldn't have happened without that. It's my operations background coming into play.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think the first year at the Trop, we we put uh the covers, like what would normally be field wall signage, over top. So the roof and then down to that fence in the front. And one of the guys leaped and was like stuck, like the thing was sagging. And he's in there. He's like, he can't get out. It was one of the funniest things. And we were like, oh
Like in a
God.
kid's house at Chunk E. Cheese with all the balls, gets
Exactly. Yeah, you can't get your footing to get out of there. But man, it's so cool like to think about some of these stories and behind the scenes stuff that people don't get to see. I think that'd be some fun content. You know, everyone always says, "Oh, there's too many bowl games or whatever," and we all know the story on that. Like it's not about
Of
the
course,
bowl.
to any time you can go to Yankee Stadium for a meeting, like that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Get a deli, a sandwich at a Bronx deli. Actually, I
Yeah.
think that might have been the time I had to go there for a bunch of meetings, but like my sons who are in college now, at the time they were probably 8 years old. We'd go, I'd be gone all day. I'd come home. Oh, Dad, where were you today? I was at a meeting. Where's your meeting? I said I was at Yankee Stadium. He looks at me like, you had a meeting at Yankee Stadium? He goes, why don't you have all your meetings there? I said
Aw.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
If everybody would come there if they weren't affiliated with the Yankees, but it's a good idea, Nicholas.
That's so funny. And it's such a weird thing seeing this thing behind you versus you being a Yankee fan. It doesn't quite compute.
Yeah, I grew up of all professional sports, any level, any sport, Yankees is my team, die hard. But I grew up a New York Giants fan, and Parcells was the coach. I was in high school, and so it was ironic that I worked for Bill Belichick, who was the defensive coordinator there, and Pepper
Right.
Johnson was on staff at the Patriots, and he's a good friend, and he was Defensive Player of the Year for the Giants when they won the Super Bowl in 1990. So that was kind of cool for me. But yeah, I kind of grew up a New York sports fan. I was a Celtics fan. Growing up in Connecticut, you can kind of go either way.
Yeah.
Never cared about the Patriots, but you work for maybe the greatest coach of all time, who you're still friends with to this day, and you have a Super Bowl trophy and a Super Bowl ring, kind of tends to make you a fan.
I could see that. I mean, I don't get it still as a Jets fan, but that's okay. We
I
can
don't know.
agree to disagree.
I don't know what you get as a Jets fan, Jessica. Not you haven't gotten much.
Pain,
Put it that way.
pain, suffering, tears, torture from other people, the usual.
Yeah.
It's my penance in life, I guess.
So
Uh,
your day will come and it'll be sweet.
I hope so. I don't count on it, but I hope. There's always hope till about week 3 or snap 3 if it was last year
Yeah,
or 2 years
yeah,
ago.
right.
But so let's talk more about motivation, right? Because I mean, you've done what most people would consider like multiple swan song type jobs, right? Really cool things, meetings at Yankee Stadium. Belichick is your friend, cool. What motivates you? Why do you get up every morning?
Yeah. So I guess I kind of learned this by accident because I was in positions to feel this way. But it's just so true. A little cliche, but so true. Like find your passion and make that your career, right? Like I consider myself a hardworking guy, but if I was an accountant, no offense to accountants, I might not be so hardworking. Like, who
Right.
wants to do that? Right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
hardworking because every job I had was cool. It was fun. It became part of my identity and I wanted to do it. Right? When I was at the Big East, I'd go to the office on Saturday. I'd bring my kids, and I do work. Why? Like, I don't know, just because it was the sports world. It was impactful. I could see the results of my work, right? When our schedule would come out and we'd have a blockbuster game on a Thursday night when people were wondering why I scheduled it on a Thursday night and all these things happens. It's not a job. It's just what I do. I get up, I read the newspaper, I have a cup of coffee, maybe I go play golf or I do something with my kids. I go to my office. I have dinner with my wife at the time. I mean, that's just my day, right? It's not work,
Yeah.
it's not fun. It's just all the same, right? It becomes who I am. And I think that's
Yeah.
important. Find a job where you do that, and then And I never understand people like you sometimes you're working with, maybe it's an employee, maybe it's a client. I had a client once there, it was after hours. They're like, I'm sorry, Nick, I'm clocked out right now. I was like, what are you talking about?
What is that?
Just answer my question. Like what I need to do is contingent upon your answer. Just give me the answer for 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes off tomorrow at 10 in the morning if you want it to compensate. But and you're not going to be successful that way.
Right.
That's kind of the message, right? That work hard, find your passion, and those two things really come together and are a recipe for success.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise right now, and there probably has been. I don't want to like blame COVID, but probably since COVID, people have been a little bit more cynical about boundaries um and work-life balance and I'm clocked out now, right? And I think the thing with that is that people who don't work in what other people do as entertainment don't get this, right? And I say that as I always say I live where people vacation, I work where people enjoy themselves. I would be at these games anyway, right? If I were a fan, but instead of going as a fan, spending way too much money on the tickets and then to get drunk and whatever, or drink it all, and then food and all that, now they're paying me to be there. Like let's stop shaming people, to use the kid terms, for enjoying what they do and wanting to do it a lot, right? I mean, it is balanced, and everyone I think gets to like define balance for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with being at the baseball stadium on a Saturday, or you know doing whatever at whatever time in your office with your kids. Like it's crazy that people kind of get so wrapped up in it, but we're doing like really cool stuff. Like that's
Yeah,
the
I
thing.
agree. I agree. And I think anybody who over references work-life balance as I need more work-life balance, right or wrong, I'm a little bit old school. I'm like, you're
Mhm.
lazy. You're trying to find a way that you don't want to work or you want to. I don't know what the goal is. I don't know what work-life balance is for you, Jess. I know what it is
Yeah,
for me. It doesn't
right.
matter what I think of your work-life balance or somebody else. Just, I don't know. We can go on a tangent and just in general about how people act in the world today, but just leave
Right.
people alone. Like, it's up to you, right?
Yeah,
Don't fault me either for judging someone who says, "Nah, I need to clock out." No, okay, well, you're lazy, and I can't work with you. So I'm either
right,
replace you or get a new client or whatever. Because it's a bit like, you think about guys who work on Wall Street, right? That's
right,
a lot of hours, a lot of pressure, but they make a ton of money, right? Probably absent for their kids a lot for a period of time. But maybe they live in Greenwich, Connecticut, and have a house in the Hamptons, and their kids go to private school, and they're teed up for success, right? There's
right.
a challenge in not spoiling them and making those kids learn how to earn it
Be
themselves.
humans,
That's a
right?
different story. But like, is that person wrong? Do they have a bad work-life balance, or
Right,
should they be applauded for providing for their family at an elite level, right?
right,
But that being said, somebody who has a 9 to 5 local job but works really hard and is a good person and is coaching the kids' little league team because he has the time to do it, is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. That's admirable too.
right.
I have that
Yeah,
same argument about stay-at-home moms. Like I'm not going to tell somebody like you're a stay-at-home mom, you don't have a career. That's bad, right? Why? Like that's there. Like there's no more of all the jobs I had, my most important job I've had in my life is being a dad, right? And I've tried to balance work with that. If a mom wants to stay home and be the primary influence on their kids, that's tremendous. If she wants to have a career and have, daycare and whatever, and then fill in around that, that's great too. But it's not for me to judge what's the right way.
right. Yeah, and I think that that's it. I think you hit the nail on the head. There is no right way. The
Yeah.
right way is what works for you. And guess what? Like I always, one of my best friends is a career and life coach, and she's like, look, who is anyone to tell you what works for you? Right? I mean, you need to decide what that success looks like and work toward that and tell everyone else to go jump in a lake. Like, why do we care?
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know?
And it goes back to everybody's wired different in their personality for a job, personality for your life, right? Like I've seen moms who love being a mom. They love it. They love packing lunches. They love going to Little
Yeah.
League, hosting the team meals, bringing cookies for after practice. They love that. And they're happy. That's great. I've seen other moms that the thought of that makes them miserable, right? They have to work, they have to have adult interaction. They bring their kids to daycare, and then they're great moms, at night and on weekends and all that because they get
Right.
fulfilled in that other way. It's a personal decision, and there's no right or wrong. So, to have this perception of work-life balance, it's different for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's people who don't want to be a mom at all and don't
Yeah,
have kids, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
of course not.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with stay-at-home dads. Again, like who cares? Who is watching all these people? Like who has
Uh,
time to watch so many people and comment for God's sake? Like, come
yeah,
on.
we're too judgmental, Jess, in this world.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of it. I always say just like mind your business, don't be an asshole. The
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
That would solve so many problems.
Pretty. That simplifies it. Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
But most people can't do either of those things, Jess.
That is very true. That is very true. All right. So what you have your interns set for this year. So you're
Yeah.
not you're not looking to find any interns or any hiring. How should people connect with you? Like what do you like to talk? I mean, obviously we've just covered every topic under the sun, it feels like, but what do you like to talk to people about? Like if somebody wanted to connect with you, what's like your favorite topic to like chat about?
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, most I have a lot of sports management students reach out to me, right? Not just from the Syracuse program, but from just from LinkedIn. They see my jobs and they think they're cool and want to know
Sure.
how I got there. And then I speak to a lot of classes. My friend Len DeLuca has a class at NYU, and my oldest son is a pitcher at Rhode Island College, and they have a sports management class. I speak there, and random classes. And it seems like I always talk about my career path and the journey. I talk about being patient. A lot of people are in too much of a hurry to get on to their next thing. I think I said earlier, my undergraduate degree is mechanical engineering. My first job was at Pratt& Whitney in Hartford, Connecticut, designing aircraft engines, which people think are
Oh,
pretty
wow.
cool, but I didn't like it. So I didn't get that job at Syracuse till I was, actually Syracuse was earlier, and then there was a little gap, and then I was at Notre Dame when I was 30, and then Notre Dame to the Patriots to the Big East under. So, I kind of in my 20s, I had a lot of fun, to be honest with you, but I was finding myself like when I was in my 20s, sports management careers weren't as obvious and as, obviously they existed. There was a fraction of the sports management programs, but anyways, your question, I like to talk about being patient, about career paths, about taking time when you're young and you're flexible, to try things out and don't be afraid to make changes. Because once you get married and you have kids, everything changes. You can't I used to at the Big East, I used to get applications for, you know, $10,000 a year interns from attorneys, from people who have these jobs say, I hate this. I can't do this my whole life. I want to work in sports. I'll do whatever it takes. But they're 35 years old and they have a family. I'm like, I get it. It sounds good, but it's just not going to work for you. And then you're not going to be passionate. And you're not going to work as hard as I need you to in this role. So do it when you're young, find your passion, be patient, trust your gut. If something sounds cool and you never thought about that career, that kind of job, if it feels right, do it. Just do it. What's
Yeah,
the worst that can happen? Every experience is a good experience, even the bad ones, right? Might be
true.
miserable at the moment, but afterwards you learn a lot and you say, "Oh boy, wow, why didn't I like that? Why would somebody want to do that? What was it I didn't like about it?" And I'll say this, and this is the other thing I talk about when I talk to a class about my career path. I kind of link them together as kind of like my story, and everybody has a story that's mostly unwritten at this
Mm.
point. But if I write a book someday, the title will be something along the lines of, you know, Dream Job, how I got mine 6 times, right?
Ooh, cool.
And the reason I say that is when I was 20, you go, what's your dream job? I might have said president of the Yankees, but if you gave me that job at that time, I would have failed miserably, would have
Yeah,
left a bad taste, and it would have maybe affected me the rest of my life, right? But
sure.
to get a job at Syracuse, my first job at big time sports, we went to the Fiesta Bowl. We had all Americans. Like I was like, this is the greatest, right? But it was a GA job. I worked really hard and I learned a lot and I could handle the job and I was really good at it, right?
Yeah.
When I became the recruiting coordinator at Notre Dame, I was ready for that job. But now it's Notre Dame and I was hitting the sign going down out to the field like I was Rudy and it was a lot of fun, but I was in charge of bringing football recruits to Notre Dame, but I was ready for it. So it was great.
Yeah.
And I got better. Though then when Bill Belichick hired me, okay, all right, then there's that, right? And there's
Right.
pressures with that. And like when we won the AFC Championship game, flew back, it's like 1 a.m. We're in our building and we're going to the Super Bowl 7 days later because it was the 9/11 year, so that 2 weeks
Oh, yeah.
acted. And he literally said, okay, Nick, tell these guys what we're doing next. And I got up in front of the team and I was prepared for it. I did it. And it was awesome. And this thing follows me around my career. And those were all internal jobs. They were operations jobs, right?
Right.
Mike Tranghese hires me to run the operation of Big East football, to run our policy manual, oversee our officials, but then also negotiate bowl deals and TV deals, whatever. So it was a little more external. Wouldn't have been ready for that in my 20s, right? But
Right.
I was ready, but it challenged me to get better. Go from there to Under Armour. Now I'm strictly external marketing, building a brand. What does that mean, right? Awesome, awesome. Bowl season hires me to create a brand from scratch, right? And to
Right.
build it and promote this system that's been around 100 years but needs some energy about it. So they all link together. They all I was prepared for everyone, but they also challenged me to get better and help prepare me for the next job. So
Right.
there was a point in the middle there I used to say, geez, my career makes no sense. Like I'm hopping around from college to pro to retail apparel
Yeah.
sales, but then when I start telling the story, I'm like, no, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
And that's kind of the formula, right? You
Yeah.
challenge yourself, you prepare yourself, you don't get in over your head, but you challenge yourself to get better and prepare yourself for that next job.
Yeah, I love that. You could never have planned a roadmap to get to where you are today. It would have,
Never.
like you said, it would have failed miserably. There would have been pivots that would have derailed everything.
Well,
But
this
looking
the job I have
backwards.
now, so I say along the way, like many of the jobs I've had, I didn't even know existed when I was in my 20s, right? And the job
Right.
I have now literally did not exist.
Yeah.
So that you couldn't have planned it. And, I think sometimes planning is overrated, right? You have to have an idea of what you like. You have to have great self-awareness of who you are and what your passion is. And then, like I said, you follow your gut, you try things and the process. I say this a lot, embrace the process because the process reveals your path.
Yeah. I
It,
love that. I'm
the
writing that one down.
process reveals your destination.
I love that.
Too many people are
Well,
focused on, I want to be this. So I'm going to put the pieces in place to get there. Well, maybe when you get there, it's not what you thought it was going to be, right?
yeah.
And then you sacrificed a lot of fun and great moments and memories and accomplishments along the way, following a
Right.
path that you designed blindly.
Yeah. Or you get there and you're like, huh, I'm done. Now what?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I experienced that not that long ago. I was like, cool, I accomplished what I wanted to. Now what do I do?
Now what?
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway,
We should probably never have a final destination in mind, right?
oh, I like that.
Because I mean, to your point, you get there and it's like, now what? Well, okay, well, maybe now it's the next thing. Maybe I could exceed what my expectations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, this has been amazing, super fun. I love our conversations always, but I don't know that we've ever sat and talked for 45 minutes straight. So I really appreciate you being on this episode of Bright Ideas. Everybody, this is Nick Carparelli. I'm Jess Dumig, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Thanks, Jess.